Yo,
We did it.
we did it, man. Yes, finally. Yeah, we'll just get into it, dude. No, it's my bad. That's my record stays untapped of never starting a video call on time. But yeah, man, I'm
Well,
glad
we're
you're I'm glad we're able to do this.
me too, and we're like 15 minutes before our scheduled time, so you are
Are
early.
we?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Huh. Maybe I just man, I got to stop trying to do the thing in my iCal where I try to trick myself to get there a little bit early because I kind of live and die by my iCal,
Hmm.
um, which I don't recommend. But it's one of those things where I'm trying to streamline a lot of stuff, but
Hmm.
I can't. You can't do that thing like the old school way. Be like putting your old alarm clock 15 minutes earlier if you're
Right.
constantly late. I'm not that kind of person. I just never set up for this in time.
Hmm.
So I think I try to juke myself out. Anyway,
Well, it gives it a
uh,
good entrepreneurial bootstrapped feel. So I like the authenticity.
bootstrap, man. I don't even know what that means. Like I've heard that term for 12 years, I think 13 years, like a lot. And it never really, like, it just feels like one of those, like synergy. It just
I
feels
was,
like one of those words that just kind of, you know?
mhm. Well, I think it means you pull yourself up from the bootstraps, but it's like with businesses, it's like you have to do everything on your own, find your money, not rely on other people, and just find a way to make it work.
Yeah, I use guerrilla kind of style a lot.
Okay.
That's kind of the best way I can refer to it because it is like we were just looking at doing a like project managing, in the planning stages of like this web series. I have these video production companies on either side of me, and they want it to be a little bit interactive as way of as kind of a way to pitch it to bigger studio houses. And I was like, I like that idea. I'm down. My company's in. And so we are going about it, and I was like, yeah, but we got to sell this in a way that we're figuring out a model of how to shoot guerrilla style
Hmm.
because that's they'll see the long hopefully a bigger production house would see the long-term benefits like Netflix does with I think a lot of production companies. If you can make good movies, B minus movies pretty
Right.
cheap. I think that's the Mark Duplass kind of method, that you always have kind of suitors out
Mhm.
there. So I was like, we got to kind of use that as a sales pitch.
It worked for
Other
South Park. Like their first episode was like cardboard cutouts, and then when they went to CG, they had to make it look like cardboard cutouts or construction paper, I guess.
I didn't know that. Yeah, I mean that's kind of how I apply every like kind of new idea. It's like, can we do this? How can we make this as inexpensive as possible while
Mhm.
keeping the creative good, which should always be there, like kind of innately, but it never is. I'm very interested to hear how you went about doing the book.
Sure.
So what's it called, by the way?
Well, we're working right now. We're just calling it the Greg Giraldo book. We
Mm-hmm.
we we had some surveys out for the title, and the one that won it was "You Don't Look Hispanic." Uh, and it is because it's based on one of his bits and it's funny.
Yeah.
But then when I was talking with our co-author and some of the other people involved, it's not really representative of him or the book, really. I mean, it's just like it kind of seems stupid to take one line he did and use that as the title. So for the sweat equity listeners, we are open to suggestions, and that's probably going to be the last thing we do. But for now, we're just calling it the Greg Giraldo book. So we're on Twitter. It's just at Greg Giraldo book, and the website is greggiraldobook.com. But we are open to titles. So if you have any, you can
I know
shoot them to me.
I love doing brand names. Oh, got some feedback. Um, I like naming stuff. It's kind of like writing a joke in a little bit
Mhm.
of a way. You're kind of trying to get a lot of you're trying to economize, you know?
Mhm.
The
Well
thing
said.
now is to have a name and then have the subtitle be super long. So what's going to be the through line for the book? How far are you in? What's the like where are you
Good question.
at?
We have about 55,000 words written. So I don't know exactly how it translates to pages, but I mean, most books of this kind would be, I don't know, 45 to 80,000 ish
Okay.
words. So we have more to do, and a lot of like kind of like joke writing, a lot of it is chopping it down. So it's not so much how many words do you have on the page, it's what's the fewest number of words you can put on it to make your point. And so we're going through edits, and we're also doing more interviews. So on one end, we're trimming it down, but then we're adding new content. Like, for example, there are a few people that we want to interview that just because of scheduling conflicts, we haven't done it yet. And then inevitably, when you talk to one person, they're like, oh, you should talk to so-and-so. You know, they worked together as open micers in the mid-90s. So there's some of that.
So, God, I was trying to think like a little bit before we got on here, and I was trying to think about like how do you project manage this? How do you go about getting a book? And then let's start backwards. I want to start where you kind of. I'm guessing he's probably your favorite comedian or one of them.
One of them, yeah, and probably the one I was always most fascinated by.
Why and why?
Because, well, one, I saw him on Tough Crowd, and then, or actually before that, I saw him on Conan once. But in school, I was always pretty smart. I wasn't like his level, but I was a good student. Went to college and whatnot. But I always, like you love comedy, and I thought it was really interesting that he bailed out on, a Harvard Law pedigree. He had this like career in front of him, and he's like telling dick jokes. And some people that's stupid, but I thought that was really admirable. And because he never really gave much detail on his background, I was fascinated by it. And also, when he passed away, it was kind of one of these things. Like, I was actually upset that there wasn't a bigger deal made of it. When I was always like the guy on Twitter or Facebook who like, why is someone crying about Michael Jackson's death? You didn't know him or whatever. It's like, but for some reason with Giraldo, I didn't know. I met him twice, but it certainly wasn't like bros with him or anything. But it was sort of a way to just learn his backstory, and I think I wanted to know it because there wasn't that much about it out there.
Yeah, I think God, he was so good on Tough Crowd, and that I think we're around the same age, and that was kind of that thing of like when you're watching that when you're younger, you're just kind of like marveled at like he's as funny as the other guys on there, I think, but he was also super intelligent.
Right.
And I before you even knew he went to Harvard or was a lawyer or any of that, you're like, wow, this guy is kind of an amazing, like, just I don't want to say raconteur, but like just very eloquent when he's hating on everybody else's dicks.
Right. But he could make fun of like Patrice's shirt. He wasn't one of these guys who was like working to be smart. I mean, that's so annoying. It was just kind of effortless. And I liked how he wouldn't. You've probably met a lot of people from the Ivy Leagues, and within like 14 seconds they'll be like, I went to Princeton or I went to Harvard. That's like their whole identity is tied up into that. And for someone to be on the opposite end of the extreme and be really successful, I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, for some reason, as you were talking about him, like I think we're enamored by genius people that just go do their own thing. Like I was thinking of Howard Hughes for some reason, even though that's like a kind of a way different example, but he at least just did what he wanted to do, and he was a really smart guy, but he was manic and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But I think what we like about him was that like he was like, I'm gonna build this huge plane and I'm gonna figure it out. The golden goose. But yeah, I mean, or the spruce moose. What was it?
The spruce goose.
See, I heard the Simpsons joke first, so it's always messed me up. And then I didn't get it until my roommate in Auburn was like, oh, remember from The Aviator? That's that Simpsons joke. I was like, oh yeah. I have no education except for The Simpsons.
That's a good if you start somewhere. That's a good.
But like, so you've been at it for a while. I think we kind of mutually kind of, are friendly with each other from afar. I've seen like you posting about it. I think your brother was on Carollo's podcast, or
he was promoting a movie directed "Can We Take a Joke?" a documentary about comedy and free speech.
He was talking about it though, right? I didn't make that up.
You didn't make it up. he might have referenced it or in an article or something, but yeah, he helped promote it indirectly. But yeah, I've been working on it for a while. Like, gosh, I got the idea a couple years ago, and then just in my spare time, like, because I did a Kickstarter campaign, but that was probably 6 months after I began doing interviews and research, because I wanted to make sure the project had legs. I didn't want to like go out there publicly and say we're going to do this if I wasn't sure it would get done.
Well, are you worried? Are you also worried another like a publisher could come in, a bigger guy, and kind of do the same thing as the timing goes down?
Right. I mean, that was definitely a concern at the beginning because it was, it was kind of like first to market. But when I talked to some of the bigger publishing houses initially, they're, you're probably a big Giraldo head. I am. To the big like population at large, it's very nichey. And so if it was Robin Williams, they'd be on it in a second. But because he didn't have that big crossover success, there's a little more hesitation. But I still thought, once people get wind I'm doing it, maybe one of his friends will do it or something like that. So it did motivate me to at least get the Kickstarter out there, because at least that showed I had first claim. But then also before I did the Kickstarter, I talked to his former wife, his ex-manager, Jesse Joyce, a lot of the people who were like very close to him. So I knew they hadn't talked to anyone else about a book. And actually afterwards, Jesse Joyce emailed me that some guy, I think from USC, some college student was working on a book about Giraldo after this, but I think he saw I had all this work out there and was like, all right, well, I'm going to stop, because nothing's came of it. So I'm just kind of head down and working to finish it.
So how do you go about this whole process? So from the start, you had the idea, you're like, hey, this guy has a story that should be told. Because I think when you started, how long from his death had it been? About 7 years, I want to say?
6. Actually, about 5, kind of about 5 years.
Okay.
And it started because I was working like a regular job again and still doing stand-up, but I had a second kid on the way, and I was on Amazon and I just searched Greg Giraldo, because I thought there might have been a book about him and I just wanted to read it, and there wasn't. So that's really what it started. I was like, no one's done this, and I was really curious about his life, and it was a little sad that nothing had been done. Like once I saw that, it was almost like, what if Frank Sinatra died and no one wrote a book about it? I mean, that might be an extreme example, but it's like in the world of stand-up comedy, I think most aficionados would say he is, if not the best, in the top 10 of the last 30, 40 years, maybe post Carlin type, and to have nothing really documented beyond videos, it seemed wrong. So that's how it started. I'm not a like author by trade. It's just I want to read a book about him. No one's done it, and I kind of got one of these light bulbs. Like, all right, maybe I'm the guy to do it.
So man, it's tough to do. You got a lot of stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
For people listening, how do you go about? I guess, because a lot of this podcast is supposed to be about like trying to do what you want to do while you're doing the thing you probably hate, or the thing that pays the bills, or
exactly.
whatever, like, or working on a passion project like this, and maybe you find out, hey, I think I could do this again, but maybe not with a comedian, with someone else. I get asked like, hey, I really want to open my own coffee shop. And it's like, cool. Well, but they're like, I don't have any money. It's like, all right, well, start by, having a coffee blog, coffee lovers blog.
Right.
Start there, because it's flexible to do. And then maybe try to pop up at some volunteer stuff where you can give coffee to people that are,
get a coffee cart, or just, bring a coffee pot somewhere and start giving away.
I was telling someone the other day, I was like, just look, you don't know if this is good, like the best thing to do for, I forget, God, I got to think of the example of what they asked me, but I was like, just start doing stuff in the direction of what you want to do, even though it might not be the exact same thing. Like, right. Just start doing that in that area. So like when I was doing stand-up, when we were sharing the stages in LA, You know, like I did improv classes, and I didn't want to, but I knew like LeBron every year kind of started trying to work on his game, like add a new element. I was like, I'm not very good off the cuff. I need to work on this. I need to work on characters. I need to work on assigning personalities to audience members when I'm talking to them. I need to learn to listen on stage, which is really tough. And so, especially when you're talking 99% of the time.
And you're amplified and they're not.
Yeah. And so like, I was just like, I know taking groundlings classes sucked. It was 3 hours after a 10-hour day in Santa Monica. I'd have to fucking book it to West Hollywood, which took an hour and a half to go 9 miles. And then take 3 hours of a class with a bunch of fucking weirdo, delusional people.
And how much, I mean, I did that too for like 3 years. And how much money was each class? I mean, it was really expensive.
At the time, I'm 24. It was a lot. You know, it's like
$800 or yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was a grunt at a mutual fund company. So it was like, I didn't make much there, and I had long hours because their pitch is a career path as a CFP. My, you know, like my thing was like, I'm going to leave this job in the recession to go do dick jokes full time. So, but I'm saying like, I knew that was like in the right area. And if someone like wanted me to help them with a sketch, I'd try to sit down for, let's go have coffee and like try to run out the beats. Cause yeah, I'm not getting paid for it, but I'm like, you know, I do want to, maybe I do want to do sketch comedy, like film it one day and kind of, so let's get some reps in that area. And now I'm finding all that stuff I've done that, you know, people are like, what the fuck? That's a waste of time. I'm using all those things now. It all kind of is an amalgam when I'm getting people that need digital commercials and I'm telling them, look, if we make them funny, if they're funny campaigns, you'll have to spend less because they'll get shared more. Right. So if we take time in the head of this and really think of, I'm trying to work out a campaign for a moving company here, and it's around the country called College Hunks, and I'm trying to get one called the Brofessional, and it's just bros that get it done. And look, it's not a 10 on the funny scale, but I've got about 30 seconds, and it's corporate, so I got to put a governor on it. But I learned I have the business side and the comedy side that helps all of that. So and I know you were kind of the same personality, and it's really hard to come by in the stand-up world to find someone that like during the day has just a real job, not like a job that's like, yeah, I just fucking take tickets at, you know, at Disneyland or something like that. Like I always thought like try to do both at the same time, and it actually helps you figure out shit on both sides.
It's a great, like, I mean, you're an example of this. It's a great lesson in time management. Like when you're at the mutual fund company, you're probably tired. You want to go home, drink, you know, whatever, watch Sports Center and crash. You don't necessarily want to haul 90 minutes to Melrose to go to your grounding class. But after you do it, you realize, oh, I've been doing this for 6 months and I'm still alive. I'm still kicking. And so kind of like going back to your coffee shop analogy, you know, this book is absolutely a passion project, more so than a for-profit venture, but I'm open to making money off of it. But I think what you said really hits home with any aspiration. It's, you know, you don't have to get a touchdown on the first play from scrimmage. It's like, just do something to advance the ball, to use a like football analogy. And like with this, I after I got a few interviews and I talked to, I think what really did it was when I talked to his wife, and she was awesome, but very just open about the relationship and kind of seemed like cathartic in a way, like, you know, someone's actually talking to me. It's not just the famous people that he knew. I was like, you know, maybe I'm onto something. And I didn't go in thinking like, oh, I need to talk to his family, right? I want to do a book. And then one thing led to another. And when I got on Kickstarter, I was kind of like, oh crap, you know, this is a lot of work. You know, it's not just interviewing. That was, I could do at night or weekends or whatever, but like the actual writing, I was kind of hitting a wall. I was like, I just don't have time. I had my two kids under 3 years old. Through Kickstarter, I connected with a guy who's a donor, and he's a librarian, a research librarian, but also a writer. and he had written a biography on some writer from a few decades ago. Sam Johnson, I guess was the guy's name. But anyhow, this guy Wayne connected through me, and I knew I wanted to find someone. In fact, I connected with some of Giraldo's friends to see if they would be interested in co-authoring, or just, and it's also a way to keep accountable. I guess that's another good piece of advice for the sweat equity listeners. It's one, you know, the old saying, you can do it all, but you can't do it all yourself. I think there's also something to be said for peer pressure or for accountability. I mean, probably doing this podcast is something like, people expect it. You don't always want to do it, but now that you're accountable to people, you can turn them out a lot faster, and you're progressing a lot more than if you were just on your own.
Yeah. So this started as a passion project, same way. And you're right. Like today's a little difficult because you can't see it on my screen, but I have people coming in the office trying to wave at me while we're talking, and I'm trying to just not look at them, and now they can hear me. But I think they're trying to get me to come over there for something urgent. So we may cut it a little early, but I got some time. But yeah, it's that thing of like, this started as a passion project, and then it kind of became a little bit of like, oh, this is a little bit of one of the few conversations I have during the week that is a little bit focused, and I'm not looking at my phone. Typically, there's not people running in and out, like flagging me down. And that becomes, and a lot of our work is very, can be very isolating, like stand up. And so like that thing of having this, and then starting as a passion thing. And I started with another buddy of mine, and it was fun with him, but it was too hard to book both of us and then a third person. But after that, it still became this thing of like, I do get people that hit me up and are like, yeah, this is really good. This app you told me to check out, I actually checked it out, and I was like, whoa, all right, that's
you listen, thanks.
Yeah, no, I had some clients that are under contracts, and I'm like, I think over time you can't really be a bullshit artist doing this long. And I try to tell them I don't know everything. I feel like I've got a good grasp on what I know, and I'll tell you like, oh, well, let me look that up. You know, the internet changes so much, the digital stuff. Anyway, but like, I feel like those skills get applied elsewhere, even with your kids under 3. You know, you may be able to look at the timeline of the book and try to figure that out. And at the same time, you go, okay, well, I could take this project management skill and apply it to the kids' next steps, you know, because I'm already in, our kid's only 7 months old, and we have another one on the way, which I can,
Irish
yeah, 13 months apart. I think I can publicly say it because I just found out we're having a girl.
Wow.
So
nice.
I think by the time this airs on the audio version, will be Thursday. So I think that'll be cool. If not, I'll be in a lot of shit. But it's that thing of like, I'm looking at their timeline of, all right, if we need to give them in a private school, if that's what we're going for, or I want to have that option, let's say,
right,
I'm approaching it like I would any project. Like, okay, what do we need to do to get there? All right, how much does that cost per month? Okay, so all right, we got to add another, whatever it is here, 22, no, not 22, 12 or 13 grand a year or something like that. If you tell me what it is over there, I might barf. Where are you, in LA?
I'm in Orange County now.
Orange County.
Yeah.
Weren't you in San Francisco for a while?
Yeah, I was in the Mountain View. Like after LA, it was 2 years. My wife had a 2-year job up there. So that, yeah, I was there. Then we moved to Orange County. Like not all, but a lot of family. You know, West Hollywood wasn't as easy to raise kids in a 600 square foot apartment.
Yeah. Hey, I like Orange County. I'm down with it. You can get to LA and San Diego if you had a gig. I always put it in gig terms. How far away am I from the good clubs?
And the gigs here, even just the weeknight ones, they don't all pay, but when they do, they're a hell of a lot better than LA. So I mean, it's the stage time. As you know, LA is probably the hardest place to get stage time, especially good stage time. So if you're 50 miles away, there's some benefits.
Yeah, and yeah, I mean, I drove to fucking Tustin from West LA on a Tuesday night. When you were talking about, slogging it, making the example from me working at the mutual fund company and slogging it out in LA mics, I always think of driving to Tustin for Tuesday night open mic. It was a really good mic. It was the one I knew I could get on, and I was like, "Fuck it, I'm driving it. I'll 3 hours, pretty much of travel time almost,
Yeah.
55 miles away." But for that point in my life, it's worth it. Anyway, I'm getting on.
You're talking about the kids, and you have a plan if you want to go to private school.
Yeah. So, but I mean, like, what kind of skills do you think you've kind of gained by doing this? Obviously, time management's huge. I feel like Giraldo, in putting a through line for that, Giraldo at one point had to figure that out, as he was a practicing attorney, right?
Yeah.
And doing stand up at night.
Exactly. And he was practicing at one of the most prestigious, but also like sweatshop type work environments where, I mean, people complain, oh, I have long hours. I worked, till 6:30. I mean, they would literally work all night, like sleep at their desk, wake up, eat, and then continue working. And so he would ditch sometimes, take breaks and go to bars or wherever there performance opportunities. I mean, he wasn't at this really big law firm for that long. It was under a year. But then one thing I learned, I thought he just like cut off from there and was like overnight a professional. But that seemed unrealistic because I'd kind of been in the trenches. You don't go from open mics to headlining in 6 months, no matter how good you are. And so he went from this really big law firm to a smaller one, and then he teamed up with a guy he used to work with. So he was hustling, I mean, he kind of had then he got married. So, I mean, he had the day job, and then he was going to Queens and Manhattan at night. I mean, he was also so good that I think his ascension was faster than most people. And he was also a little bit older to start. He's probably about 25. I don't know if that's older, but like their kids now start like 17. Or in college. He wasn't that. But that was something that's like this. I mean, if you love something and you have that, it's almost like a calling. You kind of make time for it, and everything else falls by the wayside. So it's a matter of prioritizing. And then also, I mean, to bring it back to the book project, it's just understanding like it's not going to be done tomorrow. And sometimes I get a little overwhelmed, like, oh shit, like it's too wordy, or I need more input from this, or I don't have enough background on that, or I'm imagining like criticism you'd get from the editor. It's just like all this silly stuff that these blocks we put on ourselves, when it's just like, do something. It's like when you're going to Tustin, you're thinking like, oh, well, am I going to get a 2-show deal out of this? Or am I getting my own sitcom? Probably not, but you might work out a bit that'll help in the next stage, which will get you your HBO deal in 10 years. Yeah.
On the way down, work on the bits. On the way back, listen to the set and try to work on it. I say that like I did it like that, but
you know what to do.
I made phone calls most of the time just to kind of say what's up. But what, I guess, do you have have you given yourself a date you're trying to finish it?
Yeah, it'll be out this year. I mean, the hold up, it could have been out sooner, is I can't name them, but it appears we have a publisher for this type of work in process. And I was debating, do I self-publish? Do I go traditional route? And some of the traditional publishers, they're so slow. So I get a lot of emails from the Kickstarter people or on Twitter, like, when will the book be out? And the truth is, I don't know exactly, because if it was a publisher, it's out when they say it's out. And then I was getting frustrated. So I was like, I just want to self-publish because that way I can control it. But now I found this like kind of, because it's not all documented, I don't want to say it's for sure. But it looks like I found a good option for this, where it's not self-published, but it's more in line with like digital media and kind of the new wave of content creators. And so I can't bet my life on it, but I fully expect it'll be out this year.
Yeah, just like I call it like a college football commitment. You got the solid verbal, and pretty sure, but something could fall through, so you don't want to.
And nowadays, I mean, I can put it out myself. It's just what I've learned is there's so much more than just writing it. there's the publicity angle, there's the legal angle, there's all the just ticking and tying of getting the rights for stuff if you're not sure, if you know all that kind of back end boring stuff that takes time and delays things.
Yeah, and I think I had a few, and I was messaging you, but I'm fully happy to help you with any of the online aspects to kind of getting it out there when you do, using my company to help you with that. But it's
Thank
that
you.
thing. I mean, you'll have the publisher probably handle some of that, but you're still going to have to do a lot of,
Absolutely.
the PR stuff. You gotta have someone that's good, a good publicist that can get you on everything.
Mhm.
But as far as like straight up digital marketing stuff, I've got a lot of experience in that, and you can do a lot on the lead up. The idea is really, I think you want to get it on the New York Times bestseller list. I know that's a huge goal. Like that feels insurmountable, but the deal is like pre-sold. If there's a way to do that and get a bunch pre-sold, then like everything's gravy from there or something like that.
Hope so. Yeah, and I'd love to, if it's cool with you, once it comes out, do like a more formal podcast where we talk about the book, where you can get it, because I'm going to hopefully have some parties for it throughout the country.
When are you thinking?
Like fall, summer-ish. When it's ready.
I was going to say I need to make a trip to LA anyway.
We'll probably do something in New York City. Like I'd love to have some, because a lot of the Comedy Cellar people were interviewed, and that was kind of his home base, and it just seems like a natural. But I was thinking maybe the Laugh Factory, because Jamie Masada was close with Giraldo. So come to LA. I'll drive up from Orange County, and we'll celebrate.
Hey, if I have an excuse to go to either, I'll try to make it happen. I'm supposed to go up there for a few meetings in New York, so a lot of people go back and forth between Tampa and New York, like Steinbrenner.
Well, if you have two kids under like 18 months, just leave as much as you can.
Yeah.
Have your wife take care of them.
They're half Asian, so they kind of take care of themselves most of the time. So it's all good. Plus, my wife's a comedian; she gets it. She knows what's going on. So
yeah, no, you did well. Not only your wife, but your kids are very, very good looking. It's
baby Buddha, man. Thank God he doesn't look like me. I had some rough years for a while, but he's so fat as a baby. His arms look like water balloons, like they're about to pop. You're like, is this gonna hold all of it in? Is your skin just gonna? Well, yeah, man, that's exciting. I just think about. I guess I'm helping my buddies across the hall, my video partners, 28 Monkeys. They want to do a children's book pretty soon, and they're kind of telling me about the whole process, and I was like, wow, I had no idea. Because to me, I'm like, you could probably self-publish and you could probably get it done. And I was like, oh yeah, you gotta, if you're doing the self-publish route and you have theirs is a little different because it's kind of a toy meets a book kind of deal. But like, if you're doing a hardbound book and not just a Kindle or digital version, you've got to get it produced probably in China, which means you need a quality control person on both sides of the import export, which means, it's harder. It's cheaper to do, but it's a lot more, no pun intended, sweat equity to do it. And then you have a stack of books, so you have inventory. So you got to figure out where to keep them. You got to keep them in a cool spot too that you can ship out of. Because if it overheats like it can here, then the books can get all fucked up and kind of moist, as they say.
You don't want moist children's books. That's bad.
No, that's two genres that shouldn't overlap.
Exactly.
But yeah, I think. Have you thought of a cover? I know the title's hard, man. And I honestly will try to think of some titles. I feel like Don Draper when I can name something. So, but I feel like what's the through line like for his life that, without giving away too much, but what's the through line of his, like, that you might have throughout the book about him, really?
I think one is treated everyone really well, kind of but himself. Like I think that the through line is well, that's part of it, and also this notion that we're not achieving our quote unquote maximum or potential is kind of a fallacy, because he made it in so many ways, and he's kind of like known for not making it. So that's kind of a through line. It's like, if this guy has not made it, then 98% of the people on the planet are just complete losers. You know, like I think that's kind of the through line. It's sort of take some time, whatever you're doing, and it's hokey and it's cheesy and corny, but appreciate what you have and what you've done, because it's probably a lot better than you think. I mean, it's never as good as it could be, but if you start comparing to like anyone that has more, you'll forget what you have, and also just easier said than done. Try to be good to yourself if you can, especially in comedy. It's like it's kind of a self-loathing. It's almost like a drug. It's like you love the high, but then when it doesn't go well, you're like, should I be doing this? I'm terrible. You know, it's like we get in this kind of vicious spiral, and maybe that's what motivates comics. But I think, like in Giraldo's case, he really was good to people. He was a great performer. He was you know, certainly a flawed human being, like we all are, but never really appreciated it, and then never so much. I mean, he knew he was a good comic, but there were times he would get in these spirals of depression, like, should I be doing this? And it's like, to anyone on the outside, you're like, what the hell are you talking about? You are like amazing at this. You're one of the top ever. And, you know, and that applies to other people. Just like, exhale and be appreciative.
Yeah, you know, I don't know if you get the. I mean, I know you get this doing stand up, and you're in the Bay Area soon, I want to say, performing.
I'm in Brea, so I'm in. I'm in.
Brea. Sorry, my bad.
Tonight I'll with yes, with Pizitsky.
Oh, nice.
But I'll probably be in the Bay Area eventually. But you know,
I probably my brain kind of probably auto corrected. But I do think, you know, you get this in stand up a lot, and I compare stand up and entrepreneurship they're really close. They're because it's a lot of highs. You got to have enough ego to think you can do it. But you got to have enough empathy to know that you suck at the same time, that you got holes in your game.
Mm-hmm.
And so, like, I always kind of break down entrepreneurship into that. It's empathy, ego, and then you think about the duality of stand up. That's kind of it. Is like, you know, there's some nights where you're like, I should just kill myself. And then there's other nights where you're just like, I'm the fucking funniest human being that ever lived. Like right when you get off stage, almost like right when right when you jizz, like, yeah, I'm the fucking man. Like, just whatever that ego is, it's wild mood swings.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're right. Happiness, at least in an American sense, is kind of in that thing where it's relative to everybody else.
Right.
And so, which it shouldn't be as strong. It shouldn't have that strong of a tie of relative happiness. You should be grateful, and you're right. Everybody should kind of take a minute, look around, take a 20-minute walk without their phone, and kind of think about it. Well, I mean, I do old man Jewish walks. That's my thing, because I just need to get off screens and stuff and stop looking at lights for a little bit, because I'll get in there. But the other part is, and this is where when people try to go, what people, my favorite thing is when people ask you about comedy,
mm-hmm.
and they're kind of glomming on their favorite comedian onto you, and you're like, no, you can't. Here's the only things I know that are kind of the same for all comedians. I'm like, there's a lot of different kinds of comedians. So whoever your favorite is, if like your favorite's like Mike Epps, and then you see me, you're going to be like, you're fucking horrible. Like, it's not, maybe it's not your cup of tea, you know, like,
it's very subjective.
Right. And so I was like, the only kind of two things I see personality wise, all comics kind of have that are really doing it is there's some kind of self-destructive something in their personality. And then the other part is not OCD, but obsessive nerding out on something. Like if I'm into this, I'm into this a
Right.
lot, and I'm
Full
curious,
bore.
almost to a fetish kind of
Mhm.
point. So, so that's the only two. I'm like you can't all comedians. It's like saying all people are the same when you're like all comedians do the same shit.
Mhm.
I thought Giraldo was such a there's not a lot of guys that can split those hairs, I think, by being smart and being wildly funny. Like his half hour special, I think, was one of my favorites. But I don't know. I got to wrap up in a couple minutes. Anything you got? How do people watch the progress of all this or hear about
Yeah.
it?
Follow us on Twitter. The handle is at Greg Giraldo Book. And then our website, we have links to, we'll have a link to this podcast, but also updates on the book. And we have some excerpts from it. And that's greggiraldobook.com. And if anyone has a story, preferably one of how we impacted your life positively, let us know. We can put it on the website if you're interested, or maybe use it in the book.
Any comedians we should publicly shout out to see if we can get an interview with them for the book
Uh,
for you?
we've had a lot of one who said he will interview, and I talked to him, but we haven't interviewed yet, is Jeff Ross. But then the other, and this might be a big help, is Vinny Mead from the Stress Factory. He's like the owner. He's also a comic. I don't know him, but Geraldo's last show was there, and we interviewed some people who went to it, but we haven't interviewed him.
Okay.
I've tried. So if anyone out there knows him, or if you're listening, Vinny, we'd love to talk.
We can try to put it out there. That's kind of the fun of some of this digital stuff is like we'll see if we can get it out. Maybe by way of this, you'll be able to kind of get that going, and
That'd be cool.
and they'll be able to listen, know that you're coming from a genuine fan perspective first.
Right. Yeah, I'm not Kitty Kelly. This isn't a sleaze.
Well, thanks for doing this, man. And we'll definitely, if not in person, we'll definitely do this again when the book comes out. And then well before, when you find out a date, when you're about 90 days out, give me a call and I'll go over some nerd marketing stuff.
I appreciate it.
You. All right,
cool.
man.
Thank you. Congratulations. Take care.
Thanks.
Bye.
See you, buddy.